The Chicago Bulls had a very confusing, very perplexing, very illogical trade deadline, and trying to make sense of it, I'm not going to try to do that today, guys, because there is no making sense of it. Trying to make sense of what Arturas Karnisovas does in that front office, that's a fool's errand. I'm not going to try to do that. But one of the most frustrating parts of it is trying to figure out what the timeline is here, because all of their moves would seem to indicate that they're going into a full-scale rebuild, a blow-it-up type of situation, a tear-it-down type of situation. And the big move they made in the offseason actually counters trying to do that from a logical standpoint. So their big move in the offseason was getting Giddey for 4 years, $100 million. Now, I'm not going to say whether or not I believe that Josh Giddey is the guy going forward, but all indications from the Chicago Bulls is they believe that Josh Giddey is that guy going forward. They think they got him on a bargain contract. They were happy to sign him to that number because they think he can usher in the next wave of Chicago Bulls success. So if that's truly how they feel, then their moves at the trade deadline really make no sense, because that is not the type of timeline they need to be on. Josh Giddey right now at 4 years, $100 million. If he's the player that the Chicago Bulls think he is, that's a hell of a value for a contract. That is way under market value. Market value for those type of starting point guards is 35+ million. So if you get him for 25 million, keep in mind, his deal does not have any escalators. It is a flat 25 million per year. That is a great value contract. And I equate it to kind of a rookie scale contract in the NFL, where it allows you to build out the rest of your roster and you can really push forward and really try to be a contender in those years while you have him under that rookie scale. So if we take that with Josh Giddey, that means you have 4 years where you're getting this value out of the contract, where you're getting him for below market value. You can use the rest of that cap to try to fill out the roster. That's why I was a proponent of adding a Zion Williamson, one of those kind of names where, yeah, Zion, he's not going to make them a contender this year, but the next 2-3 years, you have Josh Giddey, you have Zion Williamson, you have Matas Buzelis, you at least have the building blocks of something, and you can try to push it as far as you can with Josh Giddey as the catalyst of the roster. The blow it up moves now, you really can't do that, because by the time that you are able to blow this roster up and turn it over and revamp it, it usually takes, 3 to 6 years of really good drafting and really shrewd roster moves to truly turn a roster over. Look at the Pistons. They had one of the shortest turnarounds ever from being a playoff team with Blake Griffin to blowing it all up, starting from scratch and becoming a contender once again. That took them 5 good drafts to get into this position. So by the time the Chicago Bulls, if they really are tearing it all down to the studs and rebuilding and trying to turn this roster over, by the time they're able to successfully turn it over, Josh Giddey's value contract would have ran out. So you're no longer getting that value out of him, and you're going to have to pay him if you still think he's that guy. And the sad part is, by the time he's done that, by the time he's played out that contract, you still won't know if he's the guy or not, because in those years you have blown the roster up. You really haven't pushed it. You really haven't seen what you have in this guy, because you haven't been able to surround him with that proper talent. And from that standpoint too, if that is the long-term plan, it's really hard for me to be positive about that plan, because we've only seen 2 good draft and development stories with the Chicago Bulls in the last 10-15 years, and that is Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu. Those are the only 2 guys that they drafted, developed, turned them into quality players. And what did they just do? They sold low on them. So it's really hard for me to have any faith in that type of plan. And like I said, it contradicts the timeline that you should be on. In my opinion, with Josh Giddey under this value contract, if you really think he's the guy going forward, you should have invested more into seeing if he really can be that guy for the next 3 to 4 years while you have him under that contract. So Chicago Bulls, man, they just continue to be perplexing, continue to not make sense. I really can't make heads or tails of this roster. Some people saw, Simon's first game, Yabusele's first game, Ivy's first game the other day. They got excited. I just can't get excited about this, guys. This front office, this roster, this whole organization, they have no plan. They have no timeline. None of it makes any sense to me. If you're a Bulls fan and you're feeling optimistic, hit the comments. Let me know why you're optimistic.